Anderson.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask questions standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, current level of train cancellations are dreadful for passengers, and driver, guard and train manager availability has been driving much of this. The railway we inherited has unacceptable levels of staff shortages. We have commissioned detailed work to understand train crew numbers and availability. The previous government had no useful knowledge of staff levels, recruitment, training, overtime and planning efficiency across individual operators. That work and the government's commitment to wider rail reform will drive better staff numbers, more efficient utilisation of those resources and reduce cancellations in the future.
Order.
I thank the Noble Lord the Minister for that answer, and I'm glad to hear about the progress. But recently, both Northern Trains, which is directly government run, and Great Western, which is still in the private sector, have repeatedly given shortage of train crew as the reason for cancellations. And as the previous Secretary of State said, nationalisation is no silver bullet, but surely it should lead to a more coherent approach to employment terms and hence to a better service for passengers. So can the Noble Lord the Minister tell us when and how the government intends to harmonise terms and conditions for employees and to create, therefore, a modern rail industry providing modern standards of service, particularly at weekends?
My Lord.
Very happy if somebody else answers. The noble Baroness will have seen, I know she knows, that the government's programme of public ownership will progressively bring train operations currently in the private sector back into the public sector. At the point of transfer, the transfer of undertakings regulations of course requires the pay and conditions of the staff to be maintained. And as we progress with Great British Railways, the consultation which will lead to the wider railway bill will determine future employment policy working with the staff and the trade unions. The issues with Northern have a long history. One of the disputes that we inherited there is so old that its conditions are prior to the change in law about the expiry of mandates for strike action. I think it dates from 2017. It's taking a lot of sorting out. The government is committed to do that. And she's right, the conditions of service which only require work on 6 days a week and rest days on the 7th is no longer appropriate for a modern railway. We will have to change that, but we'll do that in discussion and consultation with the staff.
My Lords, I think I was getting too excited by the debate. My Lords, can I say I think all in this House would concur with the disputes in the railway industry were lengthy and to the detriment of many people, including the rail users. Can the Noble Lord say what actions here, maybe give a bit more insight into what actions his department took in seeking to resolve the long-standing industrial disputes at Northern Trains during the last 4 years it has been in public ownership? And how does that contrast with the previous administration?
I thank the Noble Lord for his question. The lengthy disputes were both damaging to passengers, damaging to the railway's revenue, and also sapped the morale of the staff and indeed of the management. In particular, in relation to Northern, the number of disputes and the length length of time in which they've taken place reflects the fact that no serious effort seems to have been made to resolve them in the time that the company was in the ownership of the last government. The previous Secretary of State, the current Secretary of State and I are absolutely resolute that we have to resolve these issues. They're quite deep-seated, but as we are here today, both the management and the trade unions are in discussion about how to do that, and we are strongly supporting them.
My Lords.
My Lords, may I start by commiserating with the noble Lord on the fact that transport doesn't appear to be being mentioned in the latest Great Reset speech today. It must be tough not being a priority. On the running of the railways, the noble Lord knows better than anybody else that to run a railway you need management with strong focus and a strong hand. Does he not accept that the morale of management at the train operating companies is absolutely shot to pieces as a result of the recent legislation, while they wait for the Hendy axe to fall, and that in effect, at least over the next few years, the railways are being run by the unions, much as the government appears to be being run by the unions?
There's no need to reflect the government's policy on railways in any particular speech by any member of the government. We have a clear direction to go in, and we're going there. The management of the railways, I have to say, if the noble Lord opposite knew the managers as I did, many of them are in fact rather pleased that there is now a direction. Their morale, as with my own chairing Network Rail, was significantly damaged by the promise of reform which started after the May 2018 timetable debacle and was not fulfilled by the previous government. This government is going to do it.
My Lords, my Lords.
The shortage of train crew is indeed one of the many reasons why we have cancellation of trains. But the puzzlement is, and I'd like the Minister to look into this, is that if there is a shortage of train crew, surely the company should know that the day before, or at the very least at the start of the working day. Many of the cancellations are at very, very short notice. So I'll give you an example at Euston Station. Many occasions, a train is cancelled at very short notice, which has a significant impact on crowd control within the concourse. Can the noble Lord, the Minister, look into it? Why train companies leave it to very, very short notice to say that the train is cancelled due to a lack of train staff, whether it's drivers or managers?
Whether the train's cancelled at a moment's notice or 24 hours or 48 hours in advance, none of that is good enough. And I am myself puzzled by the number of times a apparently competent train company doesn't seem to have enough staff at short notice. And the House may realise that I know how to deal with this. If you haven't got enough volunteers to work on Sunday, then somebody senior ought to be at the train crew depot on Friday afternoon putting their arms round the staff and saying, would you work on Sunday? That's what I'm expecting from railway managers. And actually, we are expecting in the new world of a joined-up railway that the management will concentrate on that to the benefit of passengers.
My Lords, latest statistics show that Northern Trains is the worst performing train company across all types of cancellations. And 80% of those cancellations are caused specifically by the operator. The Minister has talked about resolving issues, but what specific action will the Minister take to tackle this poor performance from a public sector company to ensure that passengers receive the frequent and reliable service that they deserve? The
Northern staffing issues and the industrial relations issues are intractable and as I've said this morning, have been there for a very long time. In the past 5 months or so, we've at least got to the bottom of how many disputes they've got, what they're about and how they might be resolved. And the management of Northern are working hard to do that. It is unacceptable. The government is clear that it's unacceptable. But there's no point in just painting it as a public sector operation. It was brought into public ownership 4 years ago because it was the service was dire then. And all I can say is that not much effort was made to sort it out in the 4 years until this government took office.
My Lords, yesterday the government announced the first transfer of South West Trains, it was, to the government ownership. I think it's next May. Could the Minister confirm that what he's told the House about the new industrial relations arrangements for West Rest Day working and things like that will be in place, so that South West Trains from May will have 100% attendance of all the staff as necessary.
My noble friend knows as well as I do that actually these matters need to be resolved with staff representatives on a continuing basis. The transfer of South Western to public ownership will improve the performance of the railway because it will be more coherently run between the track and the train. Of course, I can't commit to perfect industrial relations from day one, but we will make sure that actually the resources are available for that to be done, and we shall also review in each of the transfers where we stand before the transfer, what needs to be done and how quickly it can be done after the point of transfer.
Fourth oral question.